Hello, listeners, and welcome to Elisha's Eerie History.
Elisha's Eerie History.
I'm your host, Elisha Rekma, and today we have special guest star and friend of the pod, Sydney.
Just
Sydney. No legal names here. She has pink hair. She's fabulous. What more do they need to know?
I feel like you've covered all the bases. We used to live together too, so we have history. There's Eerie history and there's Elisha and Sydney history.
Yeah. So yeah, welcome, Sydney. We'll have like applause.
Should we drink to that? Real quick?
Cheers. Do you want to tell the viewers what your thoughts were on the
Professionalism. So Elisha and I have worked on a podcast before that never made it out of the first stages of recording and editing. It never made it to a platform. And he's taken some time, learned a few things. So when he told me the premise of this one, and I'm traveling, I'm visiting, and when I showed up, I was expecting a certain caliber of professionalism that I just haven't got.
So what are we not reaching that you were expecting?
Oh my God, what did I say when I got here? I think I asked, look at this. It's a black tablecloth. No art on the walls.
Well, we're gonna green screen the wall, hopefully.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna green screen this, and we're gonna have like cool shit happening.
It's just, I think the best example of the lack of professionalism is that you haven't even read your notes yet. So
Okay, I've read them. Okay, I had AI read it to me. It's gonna be fine. Post-production.
the miracle and magic of post-production.
Question. Should I close these blinds so the lighting stays consistent? Or do you think, like, whatever?
I mean, you can try it.
Okay. 1 second.
This is what I'm talking about.
Hey,
Doesn't even have the lighting together.
This is like my second recording ever.
Oh, Lord.
I need grace because listen, if this is number 1 and we're this solid, imagine number 200.
Do you think we'll get that far? I don't think Virginia has enough scary history.
Virginia's the most haunted state in America.
200 episodes, though? Do you want to pivot to talking about what this podcast is about?
Yeah, let's dive into the podcast and the concept. So, my credentials are as follows.
It's true.
It's true. That's an inside joke. They're not gonna get that.
If the more we push it, the funnier it'll be. Just keep saying it's true throughout the
true. Okay.
podcast.
My credentials are as follows. So I got a 600 on my 6th grade reading SOL. That's pretty good. That's perfect score for our non-Virginia listeners. Which was
So well, get out of luck. That's what we call them.
other credentials are as follows. I have a bachelor's degree in and I have Google. And you know what? It doesn't take a lot of credentials to make a podcast. Officially something as dry and overdone as
Spooky history, true crime, and all that.
yeah, so I will be fact checking the episodes. My plan is to have like a little like sound that's like, this idiot said this wrong. Here's the actual information. I'm trying to pull from primary sources like a good adult. That being said, the other episode had more primary sources than this one. This one is more of a urban legend vocally.
We did visit the site. I got here day one, and this drove us 2 hours to be at a place for 10 minutes, take some video and pictures,
And leave.
Then leave.
Concept of the podcast is giving history, giving insight, speaking about the haunted, all with due respect. We're not trying to offend.
Well,
I'm not trying to offend. What else about the podcast? I want it to be
it's
fun.
gay.
It's gay. We're not really gay. We're kind of gay.
I feel like we're giving Gay Cowboy some Brokeback Mountain.
The other episode was definitely not gay. but this is a little gayer.
Well, I have pink hair, so you can't avoid that, really.
The location we're speaking of today, episode 1, is Bunnyman Bridge. Bunnyman Bridge is located in Nova, which for people who aren't in Virginia, that's Northern Virginia. It's where all like the rich people live. Not me.
No, but we went to school with a lot of them.
We went to school with a lot of Northern Virginia kids at university, so we can talk shit about them.
Do you want to talk about where you're from in Virginia? That might be helpful.
Okay, yeah, that might help my credentialing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm from Southern Virginia, Lynchburg, Virginia. Woo woo. I like it there. Didn't love it. If you guys go to the south of Virginia, let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on Lynchburg, Virginia. I would go there. I like visiting there, and I would buy property there because it's cheap. But I don't think I would live there again. But it's a great place to raise a family, and that's what matters.
Not a gay family.
Well, not a gay family, but no one raises a family thinking we're gonna be gay.
Oh, I am. When I have kids.
Yeah, but you didn't have children in the 90s.
That's fair.
Your credentials, Cindy.
Yes. Well, I know I've gotten a 600 on the 9th grade world history SOL, which I feel like is a little more impressive than 6th grade. Just saying. I got a 5 on the AP US history exam too.
No one cares. No one cares.
No one cares. Oh, it's okay.
I'm just a little upset you insulted my perfect score on this. Like, did you get a perfect score on the 600 history SOL? No.
Yeah, I did. I just said.
You said the 9th grade.
I wasn't here in 6th grade.
That's not my fault.
I don't have any of the notes on this. I'm learning this history for the first time today with you all. So,
well, yeah.
Hopefully we create some raw, authentic moments.
Topic today is Bunnyman Bridge. Moreover, though, we're going to be talking about Bunnyman in general. Bunnyman Bridge is just a particular location where the Bunnyman has been sighted multiple times. Okay. First, let's get into the location. The location of Bunnyman Bridge is Colchester Overpass in Clifton, Virginia. The Colchester Overpass is in Fairfax County. It is a bridge with a train on top. Bunnyman kind of haunts all of the DMV area, which is District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. He's known to kind of be around all those places, particularly in the 70s, which, as we know, the 70s is when all the serial killers happened. Let's get into the Google reviews. I'm starting with the Google reviews.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the history. So 3.7 out of 5 out of 115 reviews. It's good. It's okay. So Anissa Glauzak said, nothing scary here, at least during the daytime. Just a cute, unique bridge that is located in a beautiful wooded neighborhood. As a lover of horror and urban legends, I simply had to visit when I was in the area for business. I imagine it could feel more, quotation marks, scary after dark since there's nothing much around. Ivania Canizales says, SMH, shake my head for you boomers. Bridge had a new paint.
Not listening to this.
Yes, they are. Maybe. Shake my head. Brit had a new paint job and street light that totally killed the vibe. I can't believe the gentrification of this bridge.
Oh my god.
Jeff Whitbread says, I was there on several nights in high school. I remember one very dreary night with my girlfriend at the time, Karen. We heard a sound then, a gunshot and a horrible scream. We were walking on the tracks trying to get away from the train, which came barreling down the tracks and nearly killed us. The train passed and everything was silent.
Okay, still no Bunnyman, though.
He heard a gunshot and a scream. That's someone else getting killed by the Bunnyman. Someone who lives there, what's their name? Trisha Dean. Trisha Dean, who lives in the area, she doesn't live at the Bunny Bridge because basically the bridge is surrounded by a subdivision with houses from what we saw. So anyways, this lady Tracy says, she lives here but not locally. She says, there's a mix of nothing ever happens here and They're pulling a dead body out of the ravine again. She says, kids, stay sober, stay off the tracks, and wear bright colors at night. Yes, woods are very creepy at night. Drive under the bridge, and then Old Clifton for some ice cream or dinner. That's nice. I think
H Mart.
we went to H Mart. Ryan Lombard says, do not go. I saw it, and he chased me at least half a mile down the road. This is not a joke. Do not go. He gave it 1 star.
Okay, so maybe he was pulling all that review down. He was putting in work to drag down the average.
Yeah.
Why would you rate it 1 star if you got scared? If you show up to a spooky place, you should want to be scared, I feel like. For me, personally.
So let's get into my sources, and then we're going to get into the history. So my sources are as follows.
It's true.
It's true. My main sources to derive all of the information was through this article titled The Real Life Origins of an Urban Legend by Brian A. Conley. Brian A. Conley is a historian and archivist for the Fairfax County Library. He devoted a lot of research to this because basically this lore had been existing in his area and people would come to him and always bring it up. He's from Fairfax, studied somewhere else, and came back. And when he got this job, he was like, you know what? I'm just going to research this and get all the history out there and squash the rumors. He derived his information from newspapers. The Washington Post is the primary newspaper because it's super close to DC. This was also on a Fox News show, apparently, called The Scariest Places on Earth. This had a whole episode dedicated to it. I derived some of my information from there. The Minneapolis Star had a article.
Now what?
So when I've been doing research for this podcast, what I find out is if it's a slow news day in other areas, they'll pick up the biggest news from somewhere else. So when I did my research for the second episode, I had a lot of from Arkansas have information on it. The most common verbal legend that goes around is if you go there and say Bunny Man 3 times, Bunny Man, Bunny Man, Bunny Man, the Bunny Man will appear and he will attack you with an axe, a hatchet, something like that. And supposedly the Bunny Man is an escaped convict or an escaped asylum resident that lives in the woods around this bridge, and he kills rabbits for sustenance, and then he uses the skin as his clothing, and he makes the skin into a bunny outfit. The story continues, and that when kids saw him and made fun of this poor man, he then killed the children. And he skinned the children and then hung the children's bodies from the bridge. I had never heard of it. Have you heard of it before?
No.
No.
Although it's not particularly, what's the word? It's not a particularly fresh concept. I feel like you hear about people in fursuits doing creepy shit all the time.
Yeah. Well, there is
The Bunny Man inspire Five Nights at Freddy's? More on that?
It did not inspire that movie. I have it.
It was a video game first.
Oh, okay. But it did inspire a movie. The movie it inspired was Bunny Man 2, and Bunny Man Vengeance.
Yeah, you gotta change some.
Yeah. Well, our
There's
Bunny...
a hot girl.
Yeah.
Of course.
Director is Carl Lindbergh. So Brian has three stories which he thinks are cold hard facts about the Bunny Man's existence.
Okay.
So first, Brian says Francis and June Holobert in February of 1949. So this was the gruesome murder of 37-year-old Frances Holobert and her 8-month-old daughter. On Thursday, Friday 24th, 1949, Ms. Holobert and her daughter were being driven through Fairfax County by her estranged husband, Charles. They were residents of the District of Columbia, obviously. And this was probably when this was not as developed. So they're kind of driving through the countryside. They have car issues, and Charles, the estranged husband, and the wife get in an argument. And she ends up supposedly taking the kid and being like, I'm taking this kid and I'm walking away. Charles claims to have spent the night in the car, get a ride back to Washington, D.C. the next day. He calls his brother-in-law, which I guess is his ex-wife's brother, and gets a ride back to go look for his daughter and wife because apparently they never turn up. Once they don't turn up, he goes and reports them missing. And then there's an intensive search involving the Fairfax County Police, Washington detectives, and Boy Scouts. That's a direct quote from our guy, Brian. Around 5 p.m., the night after they go missing and the car has broken down and all of that, they're about to give up, and they find this area of the land that clearly looks disturbed near the train tracks. And they find a shallow grave less than 200 yards from where Charles's car was. It appears that Frances, his ex-wife, has been beaten and then shot once in the head and the heart, and the baby was buried alive. Obviously, people were really shocked to hear this and scared, especially when, obviously when these things happen, it's estranged husband. The estranged husband...
He did it.
...is obviously the primary suspect. Charles later confesses that he planned this murder for weeks and then did not intend to report their disappearance. But when the car got caught in the mud and there was so much... When your car is stuck to those tire tracks, people probably saw his car driving down that street. He knew there was so much evidence about it that he was like, I'm just going to have to report them missing now instead of just killing them and try to get away from it.
Yeah. And
so he goes to trial. They find him guilty and he ends up getting sentenced to an electric chair. Charles's attorney tries to get him out of there by pleading insanity. The Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals overturns the eviction and orders a new trial. And then he is committed to the Western State Mental Hospital, which apparently he had spent some time in before, and he was declared to be insane. So yeah, that's the first theory of who the Bunny Man is, that it's lore around this gentleman who killed his wife and kids. Brian's second theory is that a man named Louis Borsig might be the identity of the Bunny Man. And he killed Minnie, Loretta, and Catherine Ridgway. Minnie and her husband had 3 children. They lived in Alexandria, Virginia. Mm-hmm. On March 4th, 1927, Louis Borsig called the Ridgway house and was saying, like, I want to see you, Miss Ridgway, for whatever reason. He doesn't really go into the reason.
He was a suitor.
Perhaps. Maybe he was the milkman. I don't know. Once he got to the house, Borsig attacked and beat Minnie Ridgway into unconsciousness and then bludgeoned her daughters, Loretta and Catherine. He then stole money from the home and fled. And that's a direct quote from Brian.
Okay, not a suitor.
Not a suitor. The crime was discovered by a neighbor who heard the moans coming from the house. All 3 victims were taken to the Alexandria hospital. Catherine Ridgway lived another 8 days. Minnie recovered and was able to identify the assailant. And then Borsig was arrested at his home and transferred to the jail in Winchester for his safety. And then Loretta died as well. Borsig was executed for the murders of Loretta and Catherine Ridgway on July 7th, which is just 3 months after his horrific crime. Yeah.
So is the reason that they think he's the Bunny Man, is he like escaped the execution somehow?
Yeah. I think it's like he was on the run in the outlying areas of Northern Virginia. His third theory involves the story of Eva Roy. So Peter Roy came to Fairfax from Minnesota. He was a Danish immigrant. And he purchased 2 areas of land in Northern Virginia spanning 180 acres. Roy was a widower, and he had a good farm. He was a churchman. And he lived with his eldest daughter, Caroline, who had a husband who was William J. German, and his younger daughter, Ava. On the morning of August 4th, 1918, Ava Roy, who was 14 at the time, left her home in Virginia at 9 a.m. to go handle Mr. Roy's small herd of cows. She ended up not returning home. And obviously, father began searching. Around the 24-hour mark after she went missing, her body was found tied to a tree in the woods, and her apron strings were tied around her throat. Yeah, she was suffocated. The coroner at the time declared that she was brutally strangled to death. I don't know if this is still a thing, but apparently if a coroner claims someone was assaulted or murdered or something brutal instead of natural death, they have to go to a jury, and the jury has to also agree. They go to the jury agrees that Eva Roy was killed by an unknown person. And so now let's get into who they think killed Ava. The first suspect in Ava's murder is William Wooster, who is 16. He was arrested for assaulting a black girl, and he was recently released from an insane asylum. But it was later found out he was nowhere near the scene of the crime, and he had alibis when Ava was murdered. The next suspect was ex-soldier, which they chose not to name him, but it's an ex-soldier, and he apparently deserted whatever military camp he was on. He was seen in Charlottesville, Virginia, with scratches on his face and hands and freshly laundered clothes. He claimed to have no memory of the events between him leaving the soldier camp that he abandoned and his capture, because they were capturing him to be like, why the did you leave the soldier camp? And anyways, he had scratches and shit, which was weird. And so then they were like, maybe this guy murdered Ava. After they investigated, they found out he was not connected to the crime. The last part of the investigation went to Ben Rubin, was an escaped inmate from Lorton Prison. Lorton Prison was...
Panopticon.
Right.
Panopticon? Come on, Hold on. Come on, Panopticon.
Panopticon.
It's pronounced Panopticon.
So third theory is this guy, Ben Rubin, who escaped Lorton Prison, which is also in Northern Virginia. He had been serving in jail for housebreaking, and he was arrested on September 19th for assaulting a little girl. While they were bringing him to the police station, he confessed to the murder of Ava. And he claims that he met Ava Roy looking after her father's cows. And when he asked her for food in a conversation with her, he told her he was an ex-convict. She declared that she would turn him up, meaning, I guess, turn him in. And he became excited and choked her. So the authorities, when they heard this, did not believe Ben Rubin. They investigated further and concluded, despite this claim, he did not actually murder her. The reason he claimed to have murdered her, he blames on the fact that apparently Ava's father was in the room when he gave this confession. But it was later revealed he just wanted to go to the Fairfax prison versus the Lorton prison because it was easier to escape the Fairfax prison because they didn't, I guess the Fairfax prison didn't have the Panopticon or whatever it's called.
Is this something prisoners would tell each other? Is this like back in the day, you think prisoners were telling each other the tea on the other prisons? How do you think they found that out?
I am sure they were letting each other know what was going on.
The judge was about to convict them, and they were like, I hope I end up at Fairfax.
Yeah. Eventually, Lou Hall was tried for the murder. His first trial resulted in him being 9 votes for guilty, 3 for innocent. But then his second trial gave him a verdict of not guilty. Ava's father died in 1938, and he was buried next to his daughter. And
Do we think he did it? Do we think he might have done it?
There's no speculation that he did it at all. Why would he kill his own daughter? It didn't seem like they had anything going on. There's no speculation of that. I'm sure he was questioned, too.
I want to know why they didn't think it was him. Like...
Why they didn't think it was the dad?
Yeah.
I don't know, girl.
Wait, you said the wife was around, right? His wife, the mom, lived with him still? Whose wife was living with him?
He was a widower. He didn't have a wife.
And who else was living with him?
His other daughter and her husband.
Okay.
Yeah. But also, this is back in 1918, so people were just murdering people and getting away with it all the time.
Yeah, but I still believe it has to be someone she knew. I don't know. But the theory here is that whoever was her killer was the Bunny Man.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because it fits the ticket. Either someone escaped from prison, someone from an asylum, or the one guy who was the ex-soldier. That doesn't fit the ticket, but the two of the three suspects fit the ticket of who the Bunny Man could be and his identity.
And he doesn't have to be any of them, and he still could have killed her. He could be...
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Brian, the historian, claims that after all of this, he cannot conclude that any of these are the Bunny Man. And all of these people had died previous to the 1970s sightings of Bunny Man.
Okay.
But he's basically saying this history may or may not have been what created the asylum story or the escaped convict story. Because those two stories are the leading ideas. And he was trying to investigate the grounds behind those ideas. This is what might have driven the urban legend. Now we're going to switch from Brian's amazing archive and history and go into the actual sightings of the Bunny Man. The first story we have about the actual sighting of the Bunny Man is with Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett. So Robert Bennett is in his car with his fiancée, and they're sitting by the Bunny Man Bridge.
They're
They're doing something for sure. They're chilling, doing, whatever.
necking. Couldn't let him put it in.
Listen,
Cut that.
since it says fiance, we can assume that Cadet Robert probably lived in the barracks and was looking for some private time. We know how
Put the tip there.
we know how this goes. Excuse me. And he was at the 5,400 block of Guinea Road, so I don't actually know if this was near the bridge, but
You're so bad. I'm sorry.
Where's Guinea Road? Hold on.
I don't know where this is. I feel so bad. Your pilot episode, you really should have had someone more supportive on here.
Yeah, you're being an asshole. You. It's all in Northern Virginia. Cadet Robert is quoted in saying, dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears, he heard a man scream, "You're on private property and I have your tag number." He claims that the rabbit threw a wooden-handled hatchet right through the front car window. And as soon as he threw the hatchet, the rabbit skipped off into the night, and him and his fiancée were not injured. They then go to the police to report what was happened.
So the guy in the bunny suit yelled at them to get off the private property.
And then, and then threw the hatchet, apparently through the front window into the car.
I mean,
That's
just protecting your
property. Yeah, basically, yeah. And so that was
just a dude in a fursuit minding his business. Then these two people come along trying to on his land.
Right. That's one of the most soundproof sightings of the Bunny Man. And the reason they believe this is really sound is obviously it's a cadet. They want to believe this man in the military was telling the truth. And then second of all, it doesn't seem like this man has any reason to lie. I mean, the guy says you're on private property and I have your tag number. That sounds like the dude was like, this is my property. Let me go up and scare these kids so they'll leave. That's what it seems like.
And then tell other people and I'll just get left the hell alone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems like. So 2 weeks later, another report was made. And I'll say outside of this was reported through Maryland, Virginia, D.C. on and off for years. So this article is titled "The Rabbit Reappears." A man wearing a furry rabbit suit with 2 long ears appeared, this time wielding an axe and chopping away at a roof support on a new house. Less than 2 weeks ago, a man wearing a bunny suit accused 2 persons in a parked car of trespassing and heaved a hatchet through a closed window. This was the cadet. They were not hurt. Thursday night, a man wearing a bunny suit described as gray, black, and white was spotted in the block alley of 5307 Guinea Road. Paul Phillips, a security guard for the construction company working on the house, saw the quote-unquote rabbit standing at the front porch of a new unoccupied house. The security guard Phillips started talking to him, and that's when the Bunny Man started chopping. "All of you trespass around here," Phillips said to the rabbit, told him as he hacked 8 gashes in the pole. "If you don't get out of here, I'm gonna bust you on the head." Phillips said he walked back to his car to get his handgun, but the rabbit carrying the long-handled axe ran off into the woods. The security guard said that the man was about 5'8", 160 pounds, and appeared to be in his early 20s. The officers never found the rabbit, and there was an investigation, and they never found him either. So the investigator, W.L. Johnson, when he started the investigation, the area that was getting developed was Kings Park West, which I almost took you to, but I decided not to.
So this was after we visited the bridge. Elisha was like, let me see if I can find the secondary location. We did not make it to the secondary
No,
location.
but
we went to H Mart.
yeah, we went to H Mart. But the B-roll will have the primary location. Kings Park West was the subdivision that was being talked about. The investigator obviously was searching for things. He never came up with anything. But after he went and questioned the people of King Park's West, he got a call. And the call was from someone who called themselves the Axeman. He said, you have been messing up my property by dumping tree stumps, limbs, and brush and other things on the property. You can make everything right by meeting me tonight and talking about the situation. And they claim it was, once again, a man in his 20s that made the call. The police obviously staked out the area the Axeman wanted to meet, and he never showed up.
Sorry, how can you tell? Okay, late teens, maybe your voice you can tell. Can you tell someone?
If they're in their 20s?
Yeah. You think?
I mean, I'm sure the dude had like slang, or he had like the likes and ums or something.
Okay.
So I'm sure there was some way at the time they could identify his age. Those were the two confirmed cases of the Bunny Man existing. They happened 2 weeks within each other. One was with a cadet and one was a security officer. So they do believe that this is a factual occurrence because two reputable people saw it, and there was someone who called an investigator claiming to be the Axeman.
And the story isn't that scary.
It's not, no one died.
No
one
one
died. The first part we talked about with Brian, he's trying to tell us why he thinks the story came about and who the possible identities are, under the understanding are escaped asylum person or escaped prison convict. What is your take? What do you think?
Okay, real quick. Was the Bunny Man, the guy in the bunny suit, actually seen before the 70s? Or the only two instances that you could find on it were the ones of the guy telling the people to get off his land?
There were more instances. The Bunny Man had been reported before. I think these are just the most solid instances.
Can we talk about the creepy, not solid ones for fun? I mean, I know at the beginning we talked about the Bunny Man who killed the kids and like skinned them and hung them up on the road.
Right.
Are there any more specifics on that?
So this is an article from the University of Maryland. It's talking about the Bunny Man. In 1973, University of Maryland student Patricia Johnson submitted a research paper that chronicled precisely 54 variations of these events.
That sounds like some shit I was doing in college.
Mm-hmm. So your question was, what about the other stories? She's saying there are 54 reports, all of people saying they've seen them, especially around Halloween. So what do you want to know about the other report?
I want to interview the Yelp or Google reviewer who said that they were chased by the Bunny Man. At the end of the day, I think that no killings took place. It was just a furry who was trying to scare some people.
So were you scared when we went there?
You know what was scary? The chainsaw noises. There was some guy cutting trees down when we pulled up. He was not in a bunny suit, though. He just had a chainsaw. That kind of added some tension to the moment. I thought there was a stream running through. That definitely added something.
But were you scared?
No. It would have been really funny if one of those people
Told us to
on the
leave.
property told us to leave in a bunny suit. That would have, as someone who is trying to build up support for this podcast, I think the Bunny Man is real. He's a killer. Watch your back if you're in Northern Virginia.
How many E's do you give the Bunny Man?
You know, I'd give it 1 to 2.
1 to 2
It's
E's?
not giving it's giving
Okay. It's giving
I don't think so. I want to say the drive was lovely. I enjoyed it. Although there was that Bunny Man Was Here graffiti. That was fun.
That was cool.
We saw a caterpillar. What did you think about it? Were you scared?
I wasn't scared. The place in the second and third episode, I got really spooked there. And I don't,
Let's build it up.
yeah.
Build it up.
And I don't get spooked very often.
If we had went at night, I could see it being very scary. But it was like 3 p.m.
I'll agree with you. 1 to 2 E's, not very scary. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope you'll tune in next month for E.
That was not harmonized. Do that again.
And I hope you'll tune in next month for our new episode of E.
Oh, we're going low?
Oh. Well, you have the high. I'm the bass. You're the.
Yeah, but your bait. Okay. Okay. I don't think we're getting it.
All right.
Elisha's Eerie History.